Hi, everybody, and welcome back. This is going to be a discussion of Chapter 22 Networks, Contexts, and the Process of Political Influence. A lot of it is about how we intake. Um, how we intake information, how we process it, and what effect that has on our sort of political beliefs. So, we do know statistically and from a lot of research that people tend to interact with those of their own ideological or political beliefs. But we also know that this isn't always possible, right? Um, this the supply of people who believe the same things we do varies across places and which party you're a member of, etc. Um, and so the supply of the ability to find like-minded um, individuals to have discussions with, etc., sort of affects the likelihood that their chosen word is homophily will occur. Sort of a homogeneous um, social network, right? At least from a political perspective. Um, Now we have to remember that the vast majority of political research going back to the Michigan school say that most people are not political experts, right? They don't know much about politics. They're not very interested in politics. Um, and that they don't have sort of an aligned or a stable ideology, right? And that the people who sort of look the most like an ideal voter, quote unquote, from sort of a normative standpoint, like a highly informed, um, highly interested individual would be sort of the normative perfect voter. Those people uh, tend to be really rare. And those people also tend to just completely discount any new information unless it falls within their own ideological perspective, right? Um, so those people do tend to be the sort of leaders in social networks, though. Research has found that most people have someone that they look up to when it comes to political information and sort of heuristics on voting and political policies. Um, those people tend to be the most informed, etc. Um, let's see. Okay, the chapter moves on to sort of a Bayesian updating argument. It gets pretty thick in the weeds here. This is a pretty difficult chapter. But I just sort of want to break it down very, very simply. Um, the Bayesian updating argument basically suggests that people have a political ideology already. That people, when they're taking in information, tend to give much more weight to sources that they trust, be they individuals or media outlets, etc. And then they sort of filter the incoming information, giving their ideological standing, and they're much more likely to sort of take in information that confirms their politics and to discount information that is sort of oppositional to their politics, right? Um, now some researchers say, look, this is sort of ridiculous to think that people use this Bayesian updating process to update their political beliefs and ideologies. We know that people are generally very uninformed about politics, not interested in politics, and so what would make you think that they would be able to do this sort of calculating politically? Those who support the idea say, they're not doing this intentionally. This is just sort of how the human brain works. And so it's sort of an inherent system for updating and rationalizing the beliefs that you support, right? So that's a basic overview of just sort of the Bayesian ideology, the Bayesian updating theory, basically, on how voters take in information and process it. They also give the example of the Asch experiments, which are pretty interesting. So what happens is they put 8 people in a group. 7 are sort of in on the joke, and there's one person who is sort of the subject of the experiment in a group of 8. They're given 2 cards. One has a singular line in black on it. The other has 3 lines, and the group is supposed to decide which line on the card of 3 matches the singular black line on the other card. And sometimes, built into the sort of experimental process, sometimes 7, the 7 who are in on the joke, all choose an incorrect line, like a clearly incorrect sized line. It's just like the most obvious thing, but all 7 are saying, okay, it's that wrong line. And they find that in 1/3 of cases, every single time the group does that, an individual will just conform to the group regardless of how long the line is, right? When we look at the experiment iteratively, we find that 3/4 of subjects, at least at one point in one experiment, conformed with the clearly incorrect beliefs of the group, and that only about 25% of all of the subjects never conformed and always chose sort of the correct line, right? So they suggest that this has implications for our political updating, and that we're very likely to sort of conform to the beliefs of the group, right, politically. It's an interesting experiment, but when you don't have all 7 of the sort of in on it people pointing to the wrong line, when say 1 actually points to the right line, the findings completely fall apart. So you would have to have this like completely inundated society with where everyone has the exact same political ideology, for this to sort of map cleanly and analogously to real world implications for politics. So, it's an interesting experiment, but I'm not really sure how real world it is. Finally, the book closes up with motivated reasoning. So this is sort of a new addition, an updated addition to the Bayesian theory, trying to clean up some of the earlier problems we talked about. It states that people tend to contextualize the incoming information based on prior belief, just like before. That motivated reasoning tends to bring biased perspective to any incoming information. You're never really going to see new information objectively, given your prior political ideology. And this sort of motivated reasoning is the most likely amongst those who are most highly informed, as we talked about earlier. So the more you look like a sort of political activist or political elite, the more likely you are to participate in this sort of motivated reasoning, Bayesian model, whereas sort of the politically unaffiliated and the politically disinterested and the politically uninformed will tend to use this sort of motivated reasoning a lot less, right? Because they don't sort of have staunch political beliefs. So anyway, that's it for this chapter. This was chapter 22. End of chapter 22. I'll see you for the next one, chapter 23, and we're getting close to the end. Have a great day.